Howdy, folks. Meandering Mike in the Man Cave of Madness. It is the middle of the evening, and we, for Halloween month, are doing an unboxing of Arkham Horror, the card game. This is set in the Cthulhian mythos from H.P. Lovecraft. So if you like yourself some horror, the cultists and the ancient ones and going mad trying to figure out the mysteries of the universe, then this might be a game for you. Now, this game here is a card game. There are board games versions of Arkham Horror, at least on the 3rd edition. It might actually be on the 4th. I can't remember for certain. But this is the card game. This is the original edition of the card game. There is a revised edition, and I'll go in more detail explaining that and the different expansions on how these were marketed and packed in different ways. So that's a little confusing, so I will go over that. Now let's take a quick mention about the type of card game this is. This says LCG. This is Fantasy Flight Games' trademarked thing for their expandable card games. It's not like Magic the Gathering, which is also a customizable card game. That is a collectible card game where the cards that you get are random in the packs, and different cards have certain rarities, and so what you get is not available to everyone unless you buy tons or go onto the aftermarket. These, everyone can buy the same things. You can start with the base game. You can get whatever expansions. You'll all get the same cards. Now, one thing to note: this is a cooperative game. This is designed for 1 to 2 players. That's one of the differences in the revised set. It has enough cards to support up to 4 players. The rules are 100% compatible between the first edition of this and the revised edition. And with either one, you can use any of the expansions that came out. So at least for that, that's nice and functional. But it is a little confusing of how they're marketed and packed, and whether you're buying the same thing or not. So one thing to note: this is a very popular customizable card game on Board Game Geek. On the customizable list, it is number 1. And I think the revised edition is also up there, like the second or top 5, whatever. Magic the Gathering is at 18 on the list. Now, obviously, Magic the Gathering is an exceedingly popular game that sells, way more than anything else, out there on the market. So in terms of raw dollars and its presence in the game stores, Magic the Gathering wins hands down. But on Board Game Geek, this is number 1 in the customizable card game category. So let's go ahead and take a look inside this. Then we'll talk a little more about the difference between it and its revised edition, and then we'll start talking about expansions. So as a 1 to 2 player, so it's solitaire friendly. No, let's go this way. Go this way. I pre-slitted some of this as usual with my oyster shucker of power for shrink wrap removal. All right, so I'm gonna start with the back of the box. That's usually the best way to do this. Let's see here. I put it right there, and I'm gonna zoom in on some of the stats and information right there. So as it mentioned, so we're 1 to 2 players. It takes about an hour or 2 per game. It's for ages 14 up. I mean, it's kind of mature in terms of the gross horror and stuff. Yeah, you could definitely play with younger, but I wouldn't go too young. Let's see. The game contents are down here, and that's in pretty small print. So even though we're zoomed in as much as we can, I'm going to go closer here. So you have investigator cards. So those are the lead characters that are trying to investigate this phenomenon that's going on and solve the mysteries and help try to save the world from the craziness. There's scenario cards, player cards, so like actions and items. This is the monsters and events and the things that the cultists do. Things. You got resource tokens, chaos tokens, horror tokens, damage tokens, clues and doom tokens, a campaign guide, and a learn to play book. Now, that's one of the things that supposedly the revised edition of this game has a much improved learn to play book. All right. They even recommend, like, if you wanted to sleeve your cards, what they got a code for what kind of cards to use. All right, so you can even scan here to get information to see what cards are in the game. So that's kind of cool. I'm not going to read all the blurb back here, but basically this is all the stuff talking about the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. And that's what you're out exploring, encountering the unknown and weird things going on, and what are the secrets and the evil forces that are behind the machinations of the events that are happening. So that's enough of all that. The ancient ones await. Can any among us uncover their secrets and live to tell the tale? Well, not just live, but live with their sanity intact. That is the call of Cthulhu, is that you... I don't know if that's going to... Let's see. I'm going to put that behind there, see if that... So I can keep that up in the background, zoom back out. There. Now we can tilt down and look there. So right on the top, there we are. Learn to play. That's pretty glossy, isn't it there? Got some glare from this light here. I wonder if I turn that away a little bit. Well, we'll see how it looks when we get inside. All right. So they define the living card game, what it is and all that stuff. Let's see if I... Yeah, and I'm back and forth. I'll zoom in if there's anything particular. I will zoom in later if we need to look at anything in detail, but it's showing what the different kinds of tokens are. Horror, I guess it's your brain. This is your brain on horror. Damage is physical damage versus mental damage. Clue and doom, encroaching doom, more doom, chaos, resources, investigators, example of the assets, skills, events, weaknesses. Those are player cards, scenario cards of agendas, acts, locations, enemies, and treachery. All right. Investigator starter decks. They explain what goes in them. How to set up the first game setup. Okay. So there's quite a bit of detail to it. He's got nice illustrations of what's going on, but there's a fair amount involved with the game. You got the chaos bag that you put the chaos tokens in. There's an example of how the game lays out on your tabletop. In this case, we got 2 players, and you could be doing this solo, which in case, obviously, I'm not sure if you play solo if you just play with a single investigator, if you play 2 investigators solitarily. I'm not sure. Okay, this is nice. Key concepts. That is a good part to go over early, talking about certain things at a high level before delving into more detailed rules. Skills and skills tests, weakness cards. Okay, then there's a sequence of player they call it the round sequence. So a round is made up of multiple phases. Now, I don't know if they're using the term turn here or not, or some games sort of redefine what it means to have turns, and do turns have rounds, or there are a certain number of rounds in a turn, or a certain number of turns in a round, or so like take your turn. That can mean different things. So you got to be careful with different games. You can't always assume that terms like round, turn, phase mean the same thing. So look carefully. I'm not going to do that right now, but do check that when you're playing a game. That don't always assume that it means the exact same thing as other games that you've played. Tutorial tip. Now that would be nice if that's in a slightly bigger font and not in italics. I don't mind it in that darker sort of brown background. I'm not sure if you can see there. You can sort of see that it was in the glare. But tutorial tip especially, I think, should be maybe a slightly bigger font and probably not in italics. You want it as easy to read as possible to make sure people read that. Advancing the act deck. Evade, engage, investigate, move. Play a card. Cooperative game. The investigators are encouraged to work together and plan out what they hope to accomplish each round. yeah, if you just don't want to always go off and do your own thing, your odds of survival are much less. So work together and communicate, but players are also encouraged to stay, quote unquote, in character as much as possible when they do so. The enemy phase, damage and horror, upkeep, mythos, engagement. All right. What's next? Custom deck building. Why build a custom deck? Deck customization rules. Starter decks. So you can build custom decks, custom scenarios and stuff, but well, if you're like, let's get new expansions, new storylines, new characters and stuff. All right. There's a nice summary on the back, the phase, sequences, keywords, glossary, instructions, timing triggers, the icons, what they mean, the different kind of character classes, Guardian, Seeker, Mystic, Rogue, and Survivor. Interesting. Okay, they show the colored icon and just a black and white representation. So that could help for people that are colorblind. Just a more simpler icon, the skills and the chaos tokens. All right. So that was the learn to play section. Now, so that wasn't, short for a learn to play. This is 16 pages total. The rule reference, fill about twice that size. Bingo, 32. Now, nice index. That is really good. Okay, thank you. Having an index. Player card anatomy, so they're showing all the different factors. Like what are all these numbers in these different places? What do they all mean? For different kinds, assets, skills, events. So this is really useful. This I think I would like to have on a card. Now maybe they have some in here, some play aid cards, but this would be great to have on a sheet, like a cardstock sheet card that you have for reference all the time. So not going to the back of this rule book. That would be really good for beginners. So we will see if there's something like that in there or not. I suppose worst come to worst, you could make one yourself. All right. So much more detailed glossary here. A big, huge glossary. Wow, this isn't a glossary. This is an annotated glossary. This is, this level of detail here in each of these sections. So this, calling this rules reference, this is very detailed. So it's 32 pages. But now, do you need to know all that to play? Probably not. However, if there's any question when you come upon a card that you haven't seen before, you might need to the first time to go in there and read about that stuff. So you don't necessarily have to read all this ahead of time to play. And some people are going to do it anyway. Some people have got to read everything first. And other people don't want to read a single thing. They just want someone, let's play. Let's just start playing. This sounds like a game that you can't just sit down and start playing. You need a little bit of investment, but you don't have to read everything. It looks like you can get a bunch of this out. Start with the learn and play. Maybe browse through this to know what's in here. The fact that there is, this kind of in-depth, well, now you know it because you're watching this. So you're very smart of you to watch this video. Thank you, folks, for your Meandering Mike likes to thank his viewers on how smart they are to be here looking at this, deciding if this is the kind of game for you, and if it is, what can you, that's why I do my quote-unquote unboxings a little more in detail. I want to show what's in there and, try to puzzle through some things as how these things are set up. And occasionally I get things wrong. I make some assumptions. And that's the same kind of assumptions that you would do if you're examining something, and it might come to your mind that, I've got to, like I say, don't always assume. Check the rules on, the definition of turn, phase, and round. What does that mean? Which ones are contained in which, or how many there are, etc. Okay, so up to 22 pages for all that. Of course, that first page is the front cover, but that glossary started here on page 2 through page 22. So that is like I said, it's not just a glossary. That is a huge annotated glossary. Then a couple appendixes, timing and gameplay, initiation sequence. So this is like examining of the sequence of play with, more subset definitions. I'm not sure what the color coding, player window. This is sort of an opportunity to do certain things, I guess. Some kind of how do you react? Framework event details. Mythos phase, investigation phase. Okay. Yes, very. So I want to congratulate Arkham Horror's publisher, Fantasy Flight Games, for having and calling it a real rules reference, because that's what this is. But and I think I mentioned that one of the differences between the first original edition of this card game, I'm pointing up at the title and you can't see it. So Arkham Horror, the card game, original, and the revised edition has improved learn to play. Okay, so if you're looking to play this game, I would suggest buying the revised edition, unless you want to get a taste for the minimum cost. Right now, this original edition, is like out there, like say on Amazon for like $23-24, where I think it was like 40-ish something to get the revised edition. So if you want to get in with the minimum possible to taste the game, to see what it's like, go for this. But if you're pretty certain that, I like these kind of customizable card games, or I like co-op games, or, I like the Cthulhu mythos, I would suggest the revised edition, because you're getting, like I said, the rules aren't really changed. They're 100% compatible, but there's better learn to play. There's enough cards to have up to 4 players cooperative. And I believe they said that besides all the cards in the original expansion, which basically doubled up to have twice as many players support, there's also some cards in there from the first few expansions or something there. So at the basic level, you start with a little more cards available. So buy the revised edition unless you just really want to get in the minimum price to give it a taste. Okay. So let's continue seeing what's in here. Campaign guide, Night of the Zealot. All right. Midnight Masks. Do not read beyond that point. So don't read that. Don't look. All right. Expanded campaign rules. More do not read stuff. All right. So I'm not going to show that too much. All right. We've got the counters. Come on. My fingers are not. They're in shrink. So that's to keep them from popping out and flying all over. They're nice rounded. Yeah, see, that one starts to pop out. So just from handling, they could pop out easily, which is good. They're easy to punch. Okay, cards. This is a card game. Now, that's interesting that this was folded over this way and not up. Do they? Yeah, they do fit. But not when they're in these baggies. They don't fit as well in there. Now, of course, as you know, if you're a regular viewer, I will talk about plastic bands. I will put these in plastic bands. I won't keep them in the baggies. I'll probably sort them. So we talked about, the investigator, the player cards, and the story cards, or whatever they call the event card kind of things. I would probably sort them to make setup a little easier, and I would use my plastic bands around each little set of guys. Oh, interesting. These must be the investigator cards themselves. There's probably 5 of these. I think there's supposed to be 5 different investigators. So that's why they showed 2 different sleeve sizes. Like there was 5 gray and 1 yellow, because 2 different kind of cards. Now, I don't normally sleeve games. Now, if there's so I don't know how this plays. If there's a game where certain parts of the decks get shuffled over and over and over again, and you use them to resolve stuff, I don't think this game is like that. I probably wouldn't sleeve these. But any kind of game that has like a combat deck that you use, dozens of times every single turn, and you're constantly shuffling it and using it and shuffling it, yeah, those should be sleeved. Otherwise, you're going to wear the heck out of those puppies. All right. I am going to look at some of these cards, not all. Now, also mention, I always check under these just real quick. If you ever get a used game from one that's been opened, check under there, because sometimes I'll put little surprises underneath the insert. So let's go ahead real quick and take a look at if my big fat fingers can get there and open up. So cute, that little tiny. Okay, now that's not what I was expecting. I was expecting some stats or something. So these are two-sided cards, colored and black and white. Nice old school noir kind of imagery. And I don't know if that has an effect on the gameplay or not. You know, like, does this mean you're in a funk, you're in a gloom, you're infected by insanity? Or, you know, have you been overcome by the forces of darkness? Or what does that mean? I do not know. Or do you want color or do you want the grayscale? So I was expecting this to be data on one side of the cards, but not. So I have no idea what the function of these would be, given that there's no data. So why would you leave this? Why? I don't understand that part. So if you know, you can put a comment and explain. Meandering Mike, it's very simple. They use them for blah, blah, blah. Yeah. You know, it's in there in the rules somewhere, but obviously I'm not going to do that right now. So I'm opening up. Ooh, look at that. Tentacles. All right, so those are all the same backing. Ghoul Priest. Let's see, let's zoom in a little bit and try to get it so there's not Flesh Eater, Icy Ghoul. Okay, Treachery cards, Hunting Shadow, it's a curse. There's multiple of some of these. False Lead, Wolfman Drew, the Cannibal. He's an enemy. All right, so these are also enemy. Ghoul Priests. So this is interesting. Victory 2, Victory 1. I'm not sure how that works. If there's multiple possible endings, or that's how you sort them for particular games. Or are you working on Victory 1 or 2 or something? I do not know that. What that means. Now, some of these names I might try to pronounce and have no clue the correct way, but Umordhothrath, Swarm of Rats, creatures. So I assume enemies are human or humanoidish, he looks like. That's a Ghoul Priest. He's got oops, get the glare out there. That sort of skull headdress there. You can see got humanish hands, but looks like very, I don't know if you can see that there, but the sharp fingernails. A Ghoul Minion. Oh, well, that guy there, he is humanoid-ish in stance, but oh boy, look at that face. That looks more wolfish with lots of raw exposed teeth. Alrighty. Ravenous Ghoul. Okay, he's just like, yeah. Definitely color. Grasping Hands. Rotting Remains. All right, so you get the idea. Acolytes, Wizards, Hunting Night Gaunt. Ooh, so much glare. On the Wings of Darkness, Treachery's card. Locked Door. Obstacle. All right. So this is where, like, that glossary could come into effect. You draw a card, say, oh, what's this obstacle? And you could go and say, well, what are the special rules about obstacles? You know, is there anything special we have to know? Certain things you can and can't do at those times. A Yithian Observer, monster. So they're like keywords. So not just a monster, but it's a Yithian monster. So certain things will affect Yithians or not. Pact. Another enemy. This Dark Young. Goat Spawn, humanoid monster. So this guy's both humanoid and a monster. Young Deep One, humanoid monster Deep One. Would you call that humanoid? That's borderline. It's kind of but kind of not. Yeah. All right. Dreams of Rilya. An omen. All right. So we're at 25 minutes in, so let's get on, because we still have to look at that expansion. So let's hurry on their action cards. Let's see, are these... Okay, here's what I was expecting those other little ones to be. Here's your investigator cards. All right, I'm going to keep those out, because I know I will plastiband those, probably together with these. Okay, so these are info cards. Ritual site. Okay, so there's two sides to this with different information. Okay, so one just has a back that says it's the thing with no real stats, and then this side has the stats. So I'm not sure, like, if you do something to activate or explore a location and find out what's going on with it. So at first you probably, I'm guessing, or maybe this is though when you neutralize location. Maybe it starts this way, you overcome it, you know, looking at these symbols, and then maybe you've neutralized that. I don't know. If you know, you can put in the comment whether you start the cards this way or this way. That's something that reading the rules would discover. But I'm letting you know that this is what we've discovered, that there are different sides of these, and that's important. Some kind of ritual cards, all that kind of stuff. Okay. And then there's one more deck here, which we'll look to see if these are going to be like character items and actions and stuff. We had the investigators there in that other pile, but I suspect Roland's 38 special daisies tote bag. So those are special items, probably because of that donated by that asterisk, that those are particular people's items. Treachery on the lamp, tactic cards, task cards, item relic, heirloom of Hyperborea. So so far I guess all items have had an asterisk, but those might be indicate starting items. Item relic or usable. Okay, Wendy Adams deck only. Roland's Bank's deck only. Okay, so that is telling you this goes in only certain decks. Well, here is a 45 automatic. This is a generic item, so anyone could potentially have it. It's not a particular one. And you can also tell that there's a slight color difference between this. There's a blue versus a blackish background. The back of them are the same, but talents, ally, police. So these are the generic cards, that police badge that anyone could have, magnifying glass, research librarian, medical texts, mind over matter, insight, that's the type, insight, working a hunch, clues, insights. This is an insight and a tactic, barricade, magnifying glass, an item / tool, item relic, okay, disc of Itzama. Now, this one has an asterisk, but it does not say that it's a particular person's deck. Protective amulet. So I'm not sure how that works. Or some items didn't have an asterisk, some do, some were in particular people's decks. So how is this one? Why does this one have an asterisk? That's something to find out. If you know, you can put that in the comments. Yeah, if you're someone who knows a lot about the game, odds are you're not watching this video, at least not to this meandering point. Maybe you are. And if you are, you're a very loyal viewer. Thank you very much. Or if you're not yet subscribed, you should be. I appreciate very loyal, knowledgeable viewers who add to the conversation. So don't forget to subscribe and like and all that stuff. All right, so color-coded. These are more color-coded one. The green ones, backstab, talent. So we had brown, we had green, we had black, we had blue. The blue were generic items, talents. So purple. What are the meaning of those colors? So that's something interesting to find out. They're not like specific to a particular investigator. I don't remember if those investigators had different colors. They do. Okay. So that's interesting. There they are. They're different colors. But I don't know, because they don't say so-and-so's deck only. So these black cards here. Some of them, like this one doesn't say specific deck. This one says Roland's only. And Agnes Baker only. But this Dark Memory spell, that is black, but can be for anyone. But then these blue ones, these are probably oriented towards the class. Okay. So I don't know if those characters of a particular kind of class. So in this basic game, there's 5 different investigators, 5 classes. As you get different expansions and they have different characters, you're going to have multiple different possible characters that have that same class. And it may be a case of you might be able to use the different color other than your main color, but maybe the other, things of your own class color, you maybe have a better effect, or you could get them easier or something. This is again, one of Meandering Mike's suppositions. Guess is looking through the game, trying to understand what's going on. And that, again, might totally be off base. I might not have any idea, but I'm not telling you how it is. I'm telling you, what's the possibilities? So those of you that enjoy that kind of sort of what I call forensic examination of a game, digging in and looking at it and trying to understand what's going on. Basic weaknesses. So I don't know if each character starts with a basic weakness or you have got it because of madness. Treachery, paranoia, haunted. Yeah, these sound like things that have happened to you during the course of investigation, and you've been exposed to this crazy, insane stuff. All right, so this has been the unboxing of the Arkham Horror card game. This is the first edition, original edition of this collectible card game. There's a revised edition, again, that has supposedly twice as many of these cards. All these cards are in there, doubled up, and there's some extras. So you can play 4-player instead of solitaire or 2-player cooperative. You can play up to 4 players. Plus, it said there were some additional ones. Now, we're going to take a look at one of these expansions. Now, I'm going to set these cards aside. I don't want to mix up the ones from this game. Whoop, doop, doop. Now, let's see here. Will this guy... Here. All right, there we go. We've got that. So, this is what they call a mythos pack. I'm going to zoom back out, and I'm going to tilt down. There we go. So, Pallid Mask, a mythos pack. It's part of the Path to Carcosa campaign. Okay, now my understanding is each campaign usually has 6 of these mythos packs. Now, that's how they were originally produced. They came out with this base game, then they would come out with, like, I believe the first one was Dunwich Legacy. They had a expansion. And then they would add these mythos packs, and there'd be 6 of them, and that would make up the whole arc of that story. So you'd have the base game, you'd buy the boxed expansion, and then you'd start buying these. And now I don't know about this game, but this model is used by Fantasy Flight Games in like their Game of Thrones and the Lord of the Rings card game, Arkham Horror. So I'm assuming it's somewhat the same in that you don't necessarily have to have all these. You don't have to do them in order. It's like you've got that stuff added from the boxed expansion, and then you say, okay, now we're going to mix these in, and you play a chapter, and then you take those out, and you mix the next ones in, and you play that next part of the story. I don't know to what extent when you're making customizable games, how much you can mix and match between different expansions, different mythos packs or whatnot. That's something to look at in the customization rules, that you could do a whole interesting mix of stuff if you came up with some cool scenario of your own. Now, just like they came out with the revised edition of this game, now again, the rules are supposed to be 100% compatible. No, like, oh, you got to throw away all the old ones. I think there was some radical change, like in the Game of Thrones card game or something. They started doing something one way and they changed something big. This is supposed to be all compatible. So if you've got Dunwich Horror from the first way and then you're getting another one, what they did was, instead of having an expansion box and then 6 of these, new expansions came out as 2 separate boxes, a boxes of campaign expansion box and investigator expansion box. So just like we had two main things here, the story elements would be in the campaign one and the character elements would be in the investigator thing. So potentially you could buy, say, just a campaign expansion. If you wanted to use your original characters from the original set and didn't necessarily want new characters, you could do that. You could just play with the campaign expansion. Now, my guess is, to make the best of it, that there's probably things about the characters that they've added to the new storyline that it's like, yeah, you'd probably want that too. So they started making new expansions at a certain point in that format. Instead of 1 expansion box and then 6 mythos packs, there's a campaign expansion and a investigator expansion. They redid the old one. So, for example, that Dunwich Legacy that I mentioned, you can find out there a Dunwich Legacy expansion, and it's also might be called Deluxe, labeled as Deluxe. That is the original format base expansion box, and then there'd be 6 separate mythos packs. Now, this one again is the Path to Carcosa campaign. So same thing. I was talking about that one. This Pallid Mask is part of. There's a Carcosa, Path to Carcosa expansion, the deluxe box, and then 6 of these, and this is like number 4 or something in the list of 6. But then they redid that, so you can find out there a Path to Carcosa campaign expansion and a Path to Carcosa investigator expansion. So if you are out there looking and wanting to, you've gotten either the original or the revised core game, and then you wanted to add a campaign to that, don't necessarily go and buy everything with that label. If you went out and bought Dunwich or Path to Carcosa, so I have one of these that I got from Kilroy was here. I could go out and buy the other 5 ones of these, and I could go out and buy the Path to Carcosa expansion, and then I would have that complete expansion. Or I could go out and buy the Path to Carcosa character, investigator expansion, and the Path to Carcosa campaign expansion. So that's very important to know, that otherwise, if you start, I'm going to buy a little of this, you could double up, and in the end, you could have twice. Like, wait a minute, and you find out I don't need all that. So odds are it's probably cheaper to get the new format stuff. So even though I have this, if you had a whole bunch of these in a particular command, then yeah, it would be cheaper to buy the old format if you already have these. But for me, I believe at this point it would be cheaper to buy the ones. Now, I'm probably going to want to do them in the order that they were released. So it's like, okay, here's the basic game experience. And then the first expansion they released was the Dunwich Legacy. So I will probably go out and get that in the new format, the campaign expansion and the investigator expansion, and see that. And then, if that's been enough for me, I would stop there. If I go on, I'd eventually get this. And then when I get this one, then I'll have to look at the prices out there right now. They're like, oh, maybe by then the prices of this old stuff might be really cheap. Now, unfortunately, what can tend to happen is mostly in games, original editions are not as expensive as later editions. Okay? Later editions have more functionality. They've fixed things. Or in this case, they've added better rules, better learn to play, and some extra cards and stuff, enough for 4 players, etc., etc. It is a very rare case in the board game world that a first edition is worth more. It's not collectible in that sense of collectibles like comic books and stamps and things like that, where older is usually much more expensive. However, when you have a thing like this where there's like 6 expansion packs, the way things will get priced, if sellers of this, like, oh my God, no one can, maybe pack number 5 of this, no one has it for sale, or very few. They double the price. They just instantly assume, oh, it must be more valuable. And so if you are the completist type collector, you can get nailed really bad on the secondary market trying to be a completist and get them all. And in this case, even though you don't need to, you can collect the new style campaign expansion plus investigator expansion. But if you become a completist and must have every single Mythos pack, there may be one out there that's, or more, that are like really high priced. So it's a weird market, especially like in the Star Wars one, that there's a couple of those. That was the other one I didn't think I mentioned. They have the Star Wars living card game things like this that had, boxed expansions plus these things. Some of those became exceedingly crazy priced. So let's get into this one here. I've rambled on enough, but it's important to know that the way that these were marketed in 2 different ways. And so I'm trying to help save you some time and money. Unless you are a completist where you have to have every version of it's the same thing, but I must have this style and that style. Well, if you're like that, well, you're gonna have to buy it all anyway. So, but I'm telling you, you don't need to buy it all if you're a functional collector. All right, this actually is loose-ish. All right. So what does a Mythos pack look like? So there is a little, not a rule book, a rule sheet. Pallid Mask, scenario 6. So I guess this is number 4 in the Mythos pack. This is scenario 6, meaning that the boxed Path to Carcosa would have had 2 scenarios in it, and then you could start getting additional scenarios from there. Check campaign log. If you do not escape the gaze of the phantom, or if you're unable to find Nigel, read intro 1. So it's not completely new. You can have done one thing or another. You have some choices, some options. Standalone mode. If you are playing standalone mode, do not wish to refer to any other setups or resolutions, you can do that here. All right. Do not read. So don't look at that. Do not read that. Oh, that whole thing is do not read there. Do not read until. Obviously, you have to read it at some point. But all right, so there's the example of the scenario-specific things for the Pallid Mask that comes in there. And then here's the cards. Candlelit tunnels. All right, so looking at the backs here. No. There we go. I was expecting to see these kind of, for certain kind of cards that we saw in the main game. So these are treachery cards, eyes in the walls. Can you see that? I'm zoomed out enough. I wonder if I go to regular zoom, and if I can hold them in the right position, you can see a little more. The danger here is I'll go down too low and you'll stop seeing them. So shout out loud if I'm not showing the whole card. Let me know. Just shout out loud in the comments. Say, hey, Mike. Treachery cards. All right. Act. So these are like plot cards. Act 1A, Act 3A. All right. These look locations. Try to keep these in somewhat togetherness, not exact order. Wow, catacombs. There are are all these catacombs the same? Wow. No, they're not. Okay, so this definitely sounds like, yes, you first encounter seeing things from this side. Catacombs, right? And then you're discovering, well, what's the difference? What's in these catacombs? Well of souls, candlelit tunnels, labyrinth of bones, blocked passage, narrow shaft, gate to hell, tomb of shadows, stone archways, labyrinth of bones, crypt of the sepulchral lamp. Sepulcher is the base, but sepulchral is the adjective variation of sepulcher. A sepulcher, it's a certain kind of a tomb, a crypt, sepulcher. Sepulchral lamp. Stone archways, bone-filled caverns, shivering pools, and there's 2 candlelight tunnels. Everything else was separate, so it's interesting that they're the first to the last one. Locations and stuff. All right, what do we got here? Spectre of Death. This is the Monster Geist Elite. Geist as in poltergeist, kind of a ghost, Geist. So the German word for ghost, Geist. Or it could be, the dreaded haunted chickens, Poultrygeist, if you've ever heard of. Sorry, bad humor, Meandering Mike humor, warning. Catacombs Docent, Corpse Dweller. All right. So, yes, these are the item cards that we'd seen before, or type things. Well, no, that's a spirit. Innate, that's like a talent, innate talent, Yeah, we saw a lot of those backs had items before, but I'm not seeing any items in this. Tactics, fortunes, there's an item. A 41 caliber Derringer. Yes. Derringer for close-up and personal. Not a very long barrel. Not going to be accurate at range. But, yeah, that's potentially kind of a big caliber there. Bam. Gambit. Watch this. Emergency cache. All right, so that was all the cards there. So that makes up a expansion pack. There was some plot type cards, the acts. You've got treachery and characters and locations, monsters, a big boss dude, that elite dude. So that's what sets you up for a scenario of, in this case, it was the Pallid Mask. Now I'm gonna, at this point, make sure I'm not. I believe these were part of this. If not, well, oops, so those go in there like that. This sets inside of this, and this becomes the advertising for this, and it snaps shut. So that's actually kind of handy that you could keep these like this, and the way it actually stands up, that's kind of cool, right? So for the other living card games that I have from Fantasy, this is the way I store them. I have like a shoebox type thing, keep them together. But since they came out, at least for this game, those new combined ones, better to get 2 boxes, campaign expansion and investigator expansion, than to get 1 expansion box and 6 of these. I think the price is cheaper, and I think the footprint of storage is easier that way. Now, of course, well, depending on how many cards there are, it's like, could you fit the character expansion and the physical expansion in the same box? Probably not. Or why didn't they package them all together? I don't know. Maybe they thought the price point was too high, and maybe. But no, I just think not using it all for a particular campaign setting, a scenario line, that's going to be too weird. That you want the whole thing. So this was my unboxing of Arkham Horror, the card game, and one of the Mythos packs, and discussion of 2 different versions of the base game and the different ways that the expansions. So there you could use this technically by itself, integrating with this with that sort of standalone mode. But for the good experience, you want to get full sets of things. And I can't remember if there's 4 or 5 different storylines out. Dunwich Horror, Path to Carcosa, some Scarlet Ravens or something. I don't know. I can't remember. I was looking at this on Board Game Geek trying to understand, because I was like, well, what would it take to get more of these? And like, I went down a rabbit hole of all the different kind of ways that they've packaged these expansions and stuff. But literally, you can get into this very cheap. Like I said, right now on Amazon, this version is like $23 something. so $24 or less can get you in to Arkham Horror, the card game. And you can have, potentially a lot of play just in that. And then you could decide to expand from there if you like it. So that would be my recommendation. Either get this one or the other one. If you're the type of person that likes to say, hey, I'm probably going to play more of a game, get that revised edition. But if you want to get in at the minimum, absolute minimum, Arkham Horror, the card game. And by the way, I do not have any affiliation with Fantasy Flight Games. I get nothing. This is not an advertisement or marketing for them. I'm just, telling you that as a game player and buyer and collector and all that stuff, different ways you might think about how you want to get into a game or not. And that gives you options. So Meandering Mike, Man Cave Minutes, we're over 50 minutes. This is way more than what I was hoping for. 45 minutes, given that we're doing a thing and an expansion. But hey, this is Meandering Mike, after all. So we have to meander. We wouldn't be Meandering Mike without my meandering nature. So to all you good folks that watched through to this far, thank you very much. And if you're not already subscribed, please do so, and give this a like. It really helps the channel to try to get the word out there. Again, I don't make any money off of this. Maybe someday I'll have enough subscribers and viewers that I'll be monetized and can make enough to buy a game or something. Like, hey, I was able to buy an expansion. When I do that, my first money, I'll dedicate it to all you. I'll go out and say, this is what I got. Whether it's some equipment for the channel, or I've already dumped a lot of money, and I've expanded over my very humble starts of nothing but a camera held vertically, and one end it was posted sideways, and so humble beginnings. I got a little tripod now. I've got a ring light here, and all sorts of other stuff. But this is not a money-making venture at all, folks. So again, I keep rambling and meandering, but I appreciate y'all. And again, more subscribers, more liking, more comment. That always helps. Very much appreciated. Now, there is going to be a giveaway. I'm going to post it after this gets posted up. I'm going to film another video today. This is going to be a game giveaway. So if you're watching this first and don't know about that, stay tuned. And that's one of the advantages of subscribing and setting your notifications on, is that you can find about those game giveaways. And there will be some, creature, monster-oriented thing. There's nothing about Arkham Horror, but there will be something in there that's for the creature monster fans, since this is Halloween month. And there'll be some books and so on. I'm gonna give away 5 prizes this time. I think it's trick or treat, right? Trick or treat. So we will do that. So stay tuned for coming up giveaway. So to all you good viewers out there, take care, keep your wits about you, and maintain your sanity. And ciao.